Before the apology, before the silence fell over that entire lobby, before the man in the uniform realized exactly who he had just put his hands on, there was an old woman on the floor, her reading glasses bent at the hinge, her dignity scattered across imported marble tile. That's where this story starts. Not with the headlines, not with the termination letter or the press conference or the lawsuit that followed. It starts with Ida Beaumont, 71 years old, sitting on the cold floor of the Grand Harwick Hotel in downtown Atlanta, trying to figure out which hurt more, her hip or the fact that not a single person in that lobby moved to help her. Ida had driven up from Macon that morning, 4 hours, by herself, because her son had told her not to, told her the drive was too long, told her she should let him book her a flight, told her she was too stubborn for her own good. She had laughed at him over the phone the way she always did when he fussed, that low, quiet laugh that meant she had already made up her mind. She had a room at the Grand Harwick because her son was being honored that evening, a ceremony. Black tie, the kind of event where they hand a man a plaque and say his name slowly into a microphone. She wanted to see it. She had pressed her best dress that morning, pearl gray with the small buttons at the wrist, and driven 4 hours and checked in without any trouble, and come back downstairs because she had forgotten her reading glasses in the car and needed them for the program. That was all. She walked through the lobby in her pearl gray dress, her car key in her hand, moving toward the revolving door, when she heard someone behind her say, loudly, in the tone that is not a question even when it sounds like one, "Ma'am, where are you headed?" She turned around. The man's name was Chuck Heller. He was the head of hotel security, 44 years old, 15 years with the Grand Harwick, a man who had never once been formally disciplined despite 3 separate guest complaints filed in the last 2 years. All 3 from black guests, none of them escalated past the manager's inbox. He was broad through the shoulders and he carried his radio on his hip like it meant something. Ida told him she was a guest. She was going to her car. He asked for her room key. She didn't have it on her. It was upstairs, in her room next to the ice bucket. He asked her name. She told him. He looked at her the way certain people look at certain other people. A long, slow evaluation, starting at the shoes and ending somewhere just above the forehead. The kind of look designed to make a person feel like they need to explain themselves more than they already have. He said he'd need to verify her registration. Ida said that was fine. She'd wait. He made the call. He took his time making it, and while he was on the radio, while Ida stood there in her pearl gray dress with her car key in her hand, a white couple walked past them both, nodded at Heller, and pushed right through the revolving door into the afternoon. Heller didn't stop them. He didn't even look. Ida noticed. She didn't say anything. She had spent 71 years knowing when to say something and when to wait, and she was waiting. The front desk confirmed her reservation. Room 714, checked in at 11:42 that morning. Ida Beaumont. 2 nights. Heller looked at his radio, looked at her, and then he said that he was going to need to escort her back to her room to physically verify the key. Ida said she didn't think that was necessary. He said it wasn't up to her. She told him, calmly, the way a retired school teacher who spent 38 years managing rooms full of 12-year-olds speaks when she has decided to stand her ground, that she was not going back upstairs. She was going to her car. She would be back in 5 minutes. If he wanted to wait, he could wait. That was when he grabbed her arm. Not hard enough to leave a mark, he would later tell investigators. Not with intent to harm. He was guiding her, he said. Redirecting. What actually happened was this. His hand closed around her upper arm. He pulled. She was 71 years old and not expecting it, and she went sideways. Her hip caught the edge of a luggage cart that was sitting unattended near the bell stand, and she went down. Her glasses hit the floor a half-second before she did. The lobby, and there were at least 30 people in that lobby, guests and staff both, a family checking in at the desk, 2 businessmen by the elevator bank, a young woman on her phone near the concierge, went completely silent. And then nobody moved. Heller stood over her. He said something about how she should have cooperated. He actually said that. While she was on the floor, a bellman near the door looked away. The family at the desk went back to their paperwork. The 2 businessmen turned toward the elevators. The young woman on her phone turned her back. Nobody moved. Ida sat on the marble floor and looked at her bent glasses and did not cry. She had decided somewhere in the 3 seconds between going down and the lobby going quiet, that she was not going to cry in front of this man. She would not give him that. What Chuck Heller did not know, what he could not have known because he had not done the basic work of treating a guest like a guest before deciding she was a problem, was that the man being honored that evening was Ida's son. His name was Nathaniel Beaumont, 38 years old, Chief Medical Officer of the Harwick Foundation, which was, among other things, the primary charitable donor behind 3 of the largest pediatric health initiatives in the Southeast. The ceremony that evening was the foundation's annual gala. It was being held in the Grand Harwick's own ballroom, the hotel's ballroom. Nathaniel had been in a meeting across town when his mother called. She didn't tell him what happened. She said she'd had a small fall in the lobby and that she was fine and that he shouldn't worry. He knew his mother. He heard what she wasn't saying. He ended the meeting, got in the car, and drove. He walked through the revolving door 22 minutes later. He was still in his suit from the meeting. Dark navy, white shirt, no tie yet. He was not a small man. He moved through the lobby the way people move when they have already decided what they are going to do. Heller was at the security desk near the far wall, filling out an incident report. Nathaniel walked past the front desk, past the bell stand, directly to where Heller was sitting. He put both hands flat on the desk, and he said, quietly, so quietly, that the woman at the adjacent desk had to lean in to hear, "You put your hands on my mother." Heller looked up. Later, people who were in the lobby that afternoon would describe the moment differently. Some said Heller went pale. Some said he just went still. One guest, a retired nurse from Columbus who gave a statement to hotel management that evening, said what she saw on his face was the specific expression of a man who has just understood, too late, the full weight of what he has done. Heller said he was just doing his job. Nathaniel said his mother's name was Ida Beaumont. She was a guest in room 714. She was there to see her son receive an award in the hotel's own ballroom that evening, in front of 400 people, including the mayor, 2 city council members, and the chairman of the Harwood Foundation's board, whose name was on the brass plate outside the conference room on the 2nd floor. He paused. Then he said, "I'm going to need to speak with your general manager. And then, I'm going to need to speak with your general manager. And then, I'm going to need to speak with my attorney. And I'd like you to stay exactly where you are until one of them arrives." Heller stayed where he was. The general manager's name was Priscilla Thorne. She had been running the Grand Harwick for 6 years. She came down from her office in 4 minutes flat, which was, by her own later admission, 4 minutes too late. She found Nathaniel sitting with his mother on a sofa near the window, holding her hand, the bent glasses on the cushion beside them. She found Heller at the security desk, not moving, his incident report half finished in front of him. She apologized to Ida. She apologized twice. She said she was sorry, that this was unacceptable, that it did not reflect the values of the hotel. Ida looked at her and said, "It reflected the values of someone in this hotel." Priscilla had no answer for that. What happened next happened in stages, the way consequences usually do when someone powerful has been wronged and has also decided to handle it correctly. Nathaniel's attorney arrived within the hour. Not because Nathaniel had called ahead, he had, briefly, in the car, but because the attorney, a woman named from a firm 2 blocks away, had cleared her afternoon the moment she got the call and driven over herself. The foundation's board chairman, whose name was on that brass plate, arrived at the hotel at 5:15. He had been planning to come for the gala anyway. When he heard what had happened, he went directly to Priscilla Thorne's office and closed the door. That meeting lasted 40 minutes. Heller was placed on administrative suspension before the gala started. His termination was finalized the following Tuesday. The hotel's parent company issued a formal public statement within 72 hours, which was faster than their communications team had moved on anything in recent memory. The statement included an apology to Ida Beaumont by name. It included a commitment to mandatory bias and de-escalation training for all security personnel. It included the announcement of a third-party review of the hotel's security protocols to be completed within 90 days. Ida's attorney filed a civil suit the following week. It was settled out of court 4 months later. The terms were not disclosed, but people who knew said it was significant. There were also the 3 prior complaints, the ones that had never been escalated past the manager's inbox. All 3 of the guests who had filed them were contacted. All 3 eventually joined a broader legal action. The gala happened as planned. Nathaniel almost canceled it. He sat with his mother in her room, 714, with the ice bucket and the forgotten key card and the view of the parking garage, and he said maybe they should just go home. Come back another time. Do this somewhere else. Ida told him no. She said she had driven 4 hours in the morning and pressed her good dress, and she was not going home. She said the award was real and the work behind it was real, and she was not going to let a man who grabbed her arm in a lobby take this night from her son. She said, "Go get dressed." He got dressed. At 7:45 that evening in the Grand Herrick Ballroom, in front of 400 people, including a mayor and 2 city council members, Nathaniel Beaumont was introduced as the recipient of the Harwick Foundation's annual Community Leadership Award. The citation read by the chairman described a decade of work expanding pediatric health access in underserved communities across Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. It described a man who had started as a resident with $40,000 in student debt and a weekend clinic out of a Baptist church in Macon, and had built something that had served. The number in the program was not approximate. 112,000 children in 11 years. When Nathaniel walked to the podium, he paused before he spoke. He looked out at the room. He looked at his mother, who was in the front row in her pearl gray dress with her glasses, the good spare pair she kept in her purse on her face. He said, "My mother drove 4 hours this morning to be in this room tonight. She was treated in a way that I will not describe here, because this is not the place for it, and because my mother asked me not to make a scene." A few people laughed softly. He said, "She told me not to let it take this night, so I won't. But I need her to know that I see her. I need everyone in this room to know that she is the reason for all of it. Every clinic, every kid, every dollar. It started with her, and it stays with her." Ida Beaumont did not cry during the speech. She waited until they were back in the elevator, just the 2 of them, going up to the 7th floor, before she let herself. Chuck Heller did not find another job in hotel security. His termination was not quiet. The foundation's statement made sure of that, and the civil suit made sure of that, and the 3 prior complaints, which were eventually covered in a piece by a local Atlanta journalist, made sure of that. He appealed his termination twice. Both appeals were denied. The 3 guests who had filed prior complaints, a retired firefighter from Decatur, a teacher from Marietta, a woman who had been visiting Atlanta for her granddaughter's graduation, all eventually received acknowledgement and settlements of their own. Small ones, but acknowledgments. The Grand Herrick's bias training program was redesigned by an outside firm. The new protocol included, for the first time, a requirement that any security intervention involving a guest be reviewed by the general manager within 24 hours. Priscilla Thorne kept her job. She had not created Heller's pattern of behavior, but she had allowed the conditions for it, and she said so, publicly, in an interview she did not have to give, and that, combined with the changes she implemented in the following months, was enough. Or it was enough for now. That was what Ida said when Nathaniel asked her, months later, whether she felt like justice had been done. She thought about it. She said, "Justice isn't a destination. It's a direction." She said she had been a schoolteacher for 38 years, and she had learned that lesson the hard way, in classrooms that were underfunded, and in union meetings that went nowhere, and in PTA rooms where she was talked over by people who were wrong. She said, "You keep pointing in the direction anyway." She said, "That's all any of us can do." There is a photograph from that evening, taken by the foundation's photographer, that circulated for a while. It shows Nathaniel at the podium, the award in his hand, looking out at the room. If you look at the lower left corner of the frame, you can see the front row, just barely, just a sliver of it. You can see a woman in a pearl gray dress. You can see that she is not crying. She is looking at her son the way a person looks at something they built from nothing, over a long time, through a great deal that was never easy. She is looking at him like she knew, like she always knew. And the question this story leaves, the one that stays after the settlement and the termination, in the ballroom and the elevator, is not about Heller, and it is not even about Nathaniel. It is about the lobby. 30 people. Silence. Nobody moved. If you had been standing there, if it had been your lobby, your Tuesday afternoon, your choice to make or not make, what would you have done? I keep thinking about the luggage cart, not the apology, not the settlement, not even the speech in the ballroom. I keep thinking about the luggage cart that was sitting unattended near the bell stand, the one nobody moved, the one that was just there, in the wrong place at the wrong time, and how that's usually how it goes. The worst moments in a person's life don't announce themselves. They arrive sideways. Ida didn't go to that hotel to make a point. She went to see her son. She pressed a dress, drove 4 hours, and walked through a lobby like a person who belonged there, because she did. And what happened to her happened not because she did anything wrong, but because someone with a radio on his hip decided, in about 4 seconds, that she needed to prove herself. That's the part I can't stop sitting with. Chuck didn't invent that instinct on his own. It was built over years, reinforced every time a complaint got filed, and nothing happened. Every time a guest was turned away, and the paperwork just disappeared into an inbox. Systems don't fail in a single moment. They fail slowly, quietly, in all the moments before the one that finally becomes a story. And here's what I've come to understand about that. The people who build something real, who actually do the work, over years with no guarantee it adds up to anything, they tend to move through the world with a kind of steadiness that looks like patience but isn't. It's something more like clarity. Nathaniel didn't lose himself when he walked into that lobby and saw his mother on the floor. He didn't perform his anger. He put his hands flat on the desk and said exactly what was true, in the quietest possible voice, and waited. That kind of composure isn't cold. It comes from knowing who you are. It comes from having built something real enough that you don't need to shout. Ida had it too, maybe more than anyone in that story. She sat on a marble floor with bent glasses and decided not to cry in front of a man who had already taken enough. That takes something most people don't talk about when they talk about strength. It takes the ability to hold yourself together, not because you're not hurt, but because you've decided that your hurt belongs to you, not to him. What I take from all of it is something that's hard to put cleanly into words. But I'll try. The way you treat people when you think it doesn't matter. When you think no one important is watching. When you think the person in front of you has no power. That's the truest version of your character. Chuck Heller made a calculation in that lobby. He was wrong about the math, but he was also wrong about something more fundamental. He was wrong about what it means to have power over someone. Real power isn't the radio on your hip. It's what Ida had, sitting on that floor, deciding not to give him her tears. It's what Nathaniel had, walking in 22 minutes later, calm and precise and completely certain. It's what gets built over time, quietly, when nobody's watching. The rest, the termination, the lawsuit, the statement, the photograph, all of that was just the math catching up.